Hey, good morning. Hey, good morning. Tom Hodson here in Kokomo, Indiana on, I think it's about the 23rd of July, and we're going to do an awesome video, possibly an award-winning video on carbon fiber, how to make a wingtip on your airplane when you have to work upside down to get the carbon fiber to stick to the bottom here. And a lot of guys will say, well, just put a bag over the end and tape it down and pull a vacuum on it to do a similar to a vacuum bagging process. However, in this case, because there's many holes in the end of the wing that goes out here, in between the aileron back there in the wing, there's big gaps, so it's not going to be possible to pull a vacuum on a bag to typically force the carbon fiber up to the bottom surface here. So anyway, you can start to see what we're going to do here. Once I lay the carbon fiber on this pad, I'm going to lower the wing and it'll push it down into this foam rubber. However, there's a few other problems that are going to be associated with doing that. But basically, for a quick introduction, that's what we're going to be doing here. And so right now we're going to walk into the shop and I'm going to mix up the resin for the carbon fiber. We'll talk about that in a minute. However, that's pretty simple, except there's some things I've already have talked about on previous videos that I'll go over that quickly, briefly, once we get in there mixing that up. There's a couple things that are going to be unique that I'm going to do that I haven't done before that will be associated with this kind of process. Obviously, in this case, it's handy for me to lower the wing when I lower the jack, because right now the aircraft is jacked up. So it's going to be easy for me just to lower the jack and it'll push the wingtip in the foam. If you can't do that, you could have a way of jacking up from the bottom your piece of foam if you had a reason to do something similar to this. Anyway, let's go in and mix up the resin, and got a few little tips here I can talk about. And so initially I'm going to probably end up doing about 3 different mixtures, since I don't know exactly how much resin to use. I'm just estimating here. I'm mixing up about 105 grams of resin. And I'll probably do this about 3 times and we'll see how it goes here. Previously, I've already, as you can see here, I've cut up 5 layers of 5.5 ounce carbon fiber, and they're cut to the shape that I have calculated to cover that wingtip on the bottom. And so hopefully I can not screw up something here trying to do this video and pay attention to what I'm doing. So what I like to do is get all the carbon fiber wet out on this sheet. Obviously you can't do it under the wing. And so what I'll do is I'm just going to pour this on here, spread it around. And so I just like to use a squeegee process to move the resin around. Works good. You can actually end up forcing it into the resin, into the cloth. As you can see here, you get, after a while, you get kind of good at moving the resin around to get full coverage. And so we'll do this, like I say, 5 times. And the first layer, you always use more resin than the next couple layers. So obviously the first layer, it soaks up. Seems like after that, each layer is a little bit less resin. As I'm doing this, you kind of see dry areas, add a little bit more resin to get it totally wetted out. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have already done some of this stuff, so you have some familiarity with that. see I use my other fingers to force down because this stick tends to float, and this way I can get really a good penetration on this first layer into the fabric. Okay, I see this edge along here is a little bit dry, so I'm just going to put a little bit more on this edge here. And I like doing this because it saves brushes. There's a time and a place to use a brush, but this is clearly, I think, more efficient, and it's certainly cheaper because, okay, that's got a nice even layer of resin, and you can't probably see with the video, but as I can see from the light reflecting on here, I can see a nice even penetration. It's obvious when it's a dry area. Now, this first piece here is cut so I get a good wrap around the tip. The next two layers are slightly smaller, and the reason is, I'll talk about it in a second. What I'm focused on here is this edge here. This edge, I want all 5 layers on this edge all at the same position. You can see this layer around here is thinner because I don't want all 5 layers to come to the same edge. So when I put the top layer on top of the wingtip, this edge will be not abrupt. It'll be kind of a feathered edge, which will allow for finishing the two surfaces. And so I've got a couple layers in the center. They're slightly smaller than the upper and lower surface, which is full size, and that'll give me a feathered edge. All right, so that's 100 grams of resin. Just for planning purposes, you can see 100 grams took care of the first layer and a little bit extra. So I'll go push this in, and it can sit here, and I will go mix up another 100 grams, and I'll see how that works. So for your information, you can see what 100 grams does for you. So we'll do another 100 grams real quick here. So bear with me. You can see I like to weigh it. Some people don't do that. I've got reasons for that, not worth talking about at the moment. Okay, there's 107. This is a slow. This is total boat. It's the same as the West system. And so I'll go to 127. Okay, we overshot just a tad, and that's okay. So this is just a resin weight, 107 grams, and we'll see it'll probably handle a couple more layers because it's already pretty wet on the first. The other thing I talked about before, and I think is important, I like using a paper cup with a straight side and a flat bottom and a square corner. That way you can scrape the corner. You can get absolutely 100% mixed resin catalyst, where if you tend to use a plastic cup with a round corner, a square stick doesn't get into a round corner very well. So there's a possibility of having resin that may not be 100% mixed. So using a square stick and a square bottom cup is a big help. Okay, now right now I can see there's resin in the center, there's dry areas around this perimeter. So I'm just going to focus a little bit on that, this bottom edge. Okay, so now I'm using slow resin here because this is gonna require a little bit of time to mess with. The next cup I'll probably put a little bit of fast hardener in it, because then it's not going to be very long until this is already sitting under the wing. Okay. Now I can tell here I've got, just for what it's worth, you can't probably see it, I've got just a little bit of extra resin on the surface here than what I really think I need, and that's okay. I'm just going to even it out, so when I put on this next layer here, it will, I can force it up into the bottom of this layer. You can see again, this is a shorter piece. You see it's short around this outer perimeter. And I like to keep this edge all even so that that's the edge that'll end up getting screwed down to the wing. And of course, you can see this does not slide. This isn't sliding on the bottom piece. It just likes to sit there. You can push on it pretty hard, push down, and we're going to push that extra resin up through the bottom of this sheet, which gives me a good penetration, saturation. Okay, I see little dry areas in here. I'm just going to add a little bit to those dry areas. And once you get used to using this procedure, the squeegee type procedure, boy, I really like it. I've done a lot of, and I haven't been able to find a better way to wet out a whole bunch of carbon fiber and do it so evenly. And okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, the next two are going to be full size, because I want full-size sheets on the very top and the very bottom of the project here. So you can see now that is out there to the full perimeter of the wingtip. Okay, so again, okay, a few dry spots here I can see. Okay, so this is our last sheet. And you can tell I've already pre-measured and cut this to almost a perfect size for that wingtip. That's kind of important. You'll see later the reason for that. Anyway, go out to mix up some more resin. Probably just not 100 grams, but I'm going to guesstimate we'll guesstimate 50 grams. So at this point, you kind of sort of take a wild guess and let you get lots of experience. And but I'm just saying, I'm thinking 50 grams should do it. And we overshot by 14. So what I'm going to do now is I basically need 12 more grams of catalyst. So I'm going to put 6 of slow in there. Whoa, there it is. And I'm going to do 6 or 7 of fast. That'll help everything kick off. There's 13. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to do 1 more little gram, because now it's not going to be very long until this is going to be over with. Where previously the resin I've already mixed up has got some time on it, and from now on this is not going to take very long to finish this project. So I'll just mix a little faster, quicker catalyst, and it will also penetrate into the catalyst that's already there, and it'll help accelerate that a little quicker. And it happens to be about 75 degrees here in my shop, just for the guys that, if I'm doing this in the winter time and it's a little cooler, it's going to take a lot longer for this to kick off. So that's another consideration I have on when you're mixing different catalysts for how much time do you need to get the job done. Okay. You can see how you can spread it around. You can learn to control that. You can just put that resin exactly where you want it. Much better than trying to use a brush. And I'm here to tell you that right now these 5 layers are pretty much tightly packed together after pushing down and squeegeeing the resin through it. There's not much excess resin in there. Obviously, we all know that any extra resin doesn't help us a lot on strength. Just adds a little more weight than it does. So that is done. We got one more thing normally I don't ever do, but in this case we need to do it, is which you'll see in a minute. I have prepared another piece of plastic. For what it's worth, this piece of plastic here, nothing will stick to it. I'm not exactly what it is, but it's kind of a rigid piece. It doesn't really stretch. There's not much stretch to it at all, and I use that as a base to do what we just did. However, another piece of plastic, which has got stretching ability, and again, it's like a polypropylene that nothing sticks to it either, but it'll stretch really easy. So in this case here, I've already prepared to cut this. I'm going to take and lay it on here, and you'll see the reason for that in a minute. So I'm going to roll it out here to kind of minimize the air bubbles that I might get between it and the surface of what we just did here. So as you can see, having this rolled up and prepared is certainly makes this part easier. And so there we go. I gotta pick that up. And okay, so that's pretty easy. You can work out a few of the air bubbles that show up, and we'll be able to massage that a little more once we get out to the wing. So you see I got a big one there. You can kind of work them out to the edge. Okay, so now what we're going to do, which is kind of unique to this, is I'm going to take this whole thing out to the wing, but I'm still going to leave this on the bottom side of this and this plastic's on the top, so that's really neat. So we can just take this whole thing basically and just grab it like this, pick it up, and we go out here to the airplane. So what we're going to do is I'm going to lay this up here, and we're going to flip this over like so. So I've already, this isn't perfectly round. There is a leading edge and a trailing edge to it. So what we did now is just flip this upside down from where it was in shop. So now the flexible plastic is on the bottom, so it's going to stretch and conform to the bottom of the wingtip. This piece here is what we built it on. So I'm going to peel it off at this point, and it's going to go in the trash immediately. That just helped me transfer this whole thing out here, so you can see how that's coming off there very nicely. Okay, so right now I'm going to put that over here, and now I'm going to get things laid back down here where I got a nice even edge. Now I'm going to take and position this thing so that this edge here is on the back side of this red stripe, which is going to give me a good 2 inches of overlap, so that the screws that'll hold it on will be in this area, but then this edge will get trimmed off. This ragged edge will get trimmed off, so the finished overlap will be something less than this 2 inches. So what I want to do is get that lined up on both the leading edge and trailing edge, so when I lower the wing, it will hopefully be just beyond the edge of that red stripe. And then I want to position it fore and aft, so I got the same overlap on the leading and trailing edge of the wing, and then this here will just, it'll fall into where it's going to be. And so I think that looks pretty good right there. And this edge looks good. My overlap here and back here is just about where I want it. And this here is verified. I'm going to have an overlap so I can wrap up on the tip. All right, so I'm going to go over and let the jack down slowly. And okay, this is touching on the back edge first. It's slowly coming down, so it's slowly squeezing like this all the way out to its tip. Looks like a nice. So now I'm going to take and let all the pressure down on it. Okay, that was a little too much. I'm going to jack it back up. Okay. kind of like that. All right, so now what's going to happen is I'm going to lift this up and slowly bring up this edge all the way around. As we all know, we can get that carbon fiber to flow in lots of directions. So one last thing I prepared to do is to hold it there. I have already put some clear boxing tape over here with no mold release agent on it. Okay, so the reason is, what I want to do now is I should take these gloves off. In fact, it'll be better if I do. So what I want to do is take this tape, grab that cellophane, and pull that up tight. And then back here, and grab this. So you can see that's going to fold this edge of the carbon fiber very nicely tight up against the radius of that pattern, So the tape wouldn't really stick on this that well. That's why I'm stretching all the way back to that point to get a good tension. So that really, the tape really sticks on this plastic very well. As you can see, I'm pulling up, so it really forces the very edge of that carbon fiber tightly against that foam pattern. So what I'll do after I get it basically down, I'll go back and put another piece in between these pieces. See here, I'm kind of getting this all flattened out in here. Needs a little bit of help to stretch out that carbon fiber. Okay, that's good for now. We'll come back and touch that up a little bit. We'll work around the trailing edge, do the same thing here. And so, okay, let's change hands here. So if anybody out there in the big wide world figure out a better way to do this, let me know. However, some of this stuff could be, this idea could be used in having to make other projects that would be, have similar requirements. And ideally, the vacuum bag, this thing would be a perfect time to use that, except in this case, I can't hold a vacuum because of all the holes in the end of the wing. This big gap that's in here vents into this area, so you'd never be able to pull a vacuum on it unless I spent a lot of time preparation and trying to plug up all those holes. which in this case, it's a matter of figuring out what's going to be the least amount of work, what's going to be the best way to go, and this is what I've come up with. Not necessarily the only way, not the only way to do this, but that's what I have done, and I kind of like it. You can see it. It really will pull that carbon fiber around that corner very well. Okay, well, so what will happen now is that we'll set up this afternoon. I'll come in and touch up some of these little tiny edges that might be a little bit high, and then lay the top layer on, which would be pretty conventional coverage like all of this. It's easy to do something on the top surface, so you can just lay it out here and squeegee it down, work the corners over, and that's about it. Like I say, the top sheet will overlap this and go underneath maybe an inch and a half or so. So I have a tough outer perimeter. That'll be a total of 10 inches or 10 layers of 5.5 ounce carbon fiber. It'll make the perimeter very strong, and so it'll be kind of up to you guys to figure out how to get this chunk of foam attached to the wing. You can do that many different ways, and then just get a real coarse chunk of sandpaper and just form that carbon fiber. Form the foam to the shape you like. But this is my answer as to how to force the upside down surface and get full nice coverage without any air bubbles, and having this foam. In this case, initially I let the wing down too far. It started to tilt this a little bit, but now I jacked it up, so I got nice good tension or pressure on the bottom surface of that whole area. And I didn't know if anybody had a problem like this before, but that's my answer to solving that when you can't do a vacuum bag process, which would be ideal if you could pull a vacuum. Anyway, that's all for now, and meanwhile, hopefully somebody might be able to use some of that information. And I guess next week is Oshkosh 2021, so maybe I'll see somebody there. Anyway, have a good day, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.